The shouting echoed down the narrow concrete hallway. A guard's voice cut through the noise. Orders. Fast. Urgent. Inside a locked cell, a young man stood near the door, breathing hard, his mind racing. Around him, the walls felt like they were closing in. The air was heavy. The silence between the shouts felt even louder than the noise itself. Other inmates began yelling from their cells. "We got a bleeder! Open up!" But the officers did not rush in. They couldn't. Not yet. Because inside a place like this, every second could be a trap. And what they were about to face could go very wrong. The door stayed shut. And that moment, right there, would reveal something deeper about this place than anyone outside could imagine. What really happens when you lock a human being alone for months at a time? And what happens when they begin to break? To understand that moment, we have to go back. Back to a prison in the United States. A place called the Maine State Prison. A place built to hold the most dangerous men in the state. Behind its high walls and heavy steel doors were hundreds of inmates. Some had committed serious crimes. Others had long histories of violence. Most lived in the general population, where they could move around, talk to others, and spend time outside their cells. But there was another part of the prison. A place within the prison. A place most inmates feared. The segregation unit. Solitary confinement. Here, men were locked in small cells for 23 hours a day. No normal conversations. No real human contact. Just a bed, a toilet, and 4 walls. One of the men sent there was Todd Michael Fiquette. Todd was in prison for arson. But that was not why he was sent to isolation. He had assaulted a prison officer. Because of that, he was placed in solitary confinement for 6 months. For Todd, this was not his first time. And he already knew what it could do to his mind. He once described it in simple words. It's like being buried alive. You are still breathing. Still alive. But you feel like you don't exist to anyone. At first, the days pass slowly. You count the hours. You try to keep your mind busy. But soon, the silence starts to change things. Your thoughts get louder. Your emotions get stronger. And for some inmates, that is when everything begins to fall apart. On a typical night in the segregation unit, the tension is always there. Officers walk the corridors, checking each cell through small windows. Inmates shout, argue, or sit quietly in the dark. Sometimes, they act out. They flood their cells with water. They throw food. They try to get attention in any way they can. Because in solitary, attention is one of the only things left. One night, an officer stopped in front of a cell. The window was covered. That was not allowed. If a window is covered, officers cannot see inside. And that is dangerous. Someone inside could be hurt. Or pretending. Or waiting. The officer called out. No answer. He tried to look through another angle. Still nothing. Now the situation had changed. If an inmate refuses to uncover the window, the officers must act. But opening that door is risky. Because they don't know what's waiting inside. So they prepare carefully. Protective gear. Clear instructions. A plan. Because even a small mistake can lead to serious harm. Moments like this happen often in solitary. And each one shows just how tense life is inside that unit. Another inmate, Gordon Perry, had been there for over a year. Longer than most. He had seen things most people would never believe. He described the unit as an insane asylum. Not because of the building, but because of what happens to people inside it. He had watched inmates lose control. He had seen how isolation changes behavior. It makes you mean, he said. It makes you violent. And over time, it changes how people think. The prison itself holds around 900 inmates. Most of them live outside segregation. They can walk around, talk, exercise, interact. But in solitary, everything is different. Inmates spend almost the entire day alone. They are let out for 1 hour. Sometimes into a small cage. Then they go back. Day after day. Week after week. For some, month after month. Another inmate, Adam Brulot, entered the unit after a violent outburst. He had been involved in a fight. He lost control. And now, he was sent to solitary. At first, Adam thought he could handle it. He told himself he would stay calm. Read books. Exercise. Keep his mind busy. You can't get yourself wound up, he said. Because you can't leave that room. At the beginning, he believed he was doing okay. But time works differently in isolation. Days feel longer. Thoughts become heavier. And slowly, the confidence fades. Meanwhile, Todd was already feeling the pressure. Only 1 week into his 6-month sentence, his mental state began to change. He knew the signs. He had been there before. He knew what was coming. And one night, everything reached a breaking point. He harmed himself inside the cell. Officers found him unconscious. Medical staff stepped in. But instead of relief, the situation became worse. Because in this system, even that action led to more punishment. More time in solitary. For Todd, that felt like being pushed deeper into a hole he was already struggling to escape. From the officer's point of view, things looked different. They believed Todd was trying to manipulate the system. They saw his actions as a way to avoid consequences. And in a place like this, control is everything. If inmates find ways to control the situation, the system begins to fail. So the rules stay strict. Even when the situation becomes complicated. Inside the unit, there are constant challenges. Officers must balance safety and order. They must respond to threats. But they must also avoid being tricked. Because sometimes, what looks like an emergency is not. And sometimes, what looks calm is not either. Every decision matters. Every move is calculated. Because one wrong step could lead to serious consequences. As the days passed, the pressure inside the unit continued to build. Inmates became more restless, more frustrated, more unpredictable. And the environment itself began to show cracks. The questions slowly started to grow. Not just inside the prison, but across the country. Is solitary confinement actually working? Or is it making things worse? For decades, it had been used as a way to control dangerous behavior. But now, some people inside the system were beginning to doubt it. One of those people was the prison's warden, Rodney Buford. He believed that something needed to change. Because most inmates would not stay in prison forever. One day, many of them would be released. And if they spent years in isolation, what kind of person would they become? Would they be better? Or worse? That question would soon lead to a decision. A risky one. A decision that could change everything inside the prison. But also one that could go terribly wrong. And as tensions continued to rise inside the segregation unit, that decision was getting closer. And closer. Until finally, it would be put to the test.